Hello and welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm Joyce Sunas, Director of Women's Outreach for Operation Outcry Silent No More. Faces of Abortion is a program dedicated to bringing you an important truth: abortion hurts women. Join us as we hear from women across the nation speak to this truth. In their own words, they will share personal insight as to the devastation abortion has caused them and their family. Faces of Abortion is also a place of hope and understanding for those suffering from abortion trauma. Are you hurting? Stay tuned and experience the hope and forgiveness I have come to know after multiple abortions. And finally, Faces of Abortion will provide you with practical ways in which you can help end abortion today. I promise you will be moved, informed, and educated in a powerful way on this week's edition of Faces of Abortion.
Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Molly White, and I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Clayton Trotter, the General Counsel of the Justice Foundation, and Alan Parker, the President of the Justice Foundation. And we have a special guest in our studio with us today, and it's Myra from Texas.
This week you'll be hearing from Myra and Rebecca about their experience with abortion. Have you ever had an abortion? Do you know what it's like? If you have, you want to watch this program. But if you haven't, you particularly need to watch this show so that you can learn something about one of the most important issues facing America today: abortion. Is it good for women, or is it something that hurts women? We want you to know the truth, because the truth will set you free. Thank you for watching Faces of Abortion.
Real-life stories from real-life women who have been hurt by abortion and are silent no more. In her own words, without interruptions or questions. It is emotional, powerful, truthful in a way that you have never seen, most likely have never heard, nor experienced.
23 years ago, I made the wrong choice to have an abortion. At the time, I was told it would solve all of my problems and I could go on with my life. It didn't solve anything. The only thing that it did do was turn me to drugs and alcohol for choosing death for my baby. It also changed the way I related to my 6-month-old son, who was waiting at home for me when I came home from the abortion facility. He was crying and I couldn't hold him or comfort him. And I know now that that was the day that our relationship changed. And I had an aversion to babies. I couldn't be in the room around other babies. And because of this, about 12 years later, it was pretty easy for me to make another wrong choice. So I went back to the abortion facility. This time I went to the one in Tampa, Florida. The first one was in Lakeland, Florida. And I had another abortion. So I went back to the clinic in Lakeland. I was so ashamed that here I was a few months later pregnant again. I didn't even go back to the clinic in Tampa, so I went back to Lakeland again. But I was crying the whole time. One of my girlfriends went with me because he wouldn't even go because he didn't want me to have the abortion. But I went back and I just cried, and nobody at the clinic acted like they wanted to stop me, and it was like they just wanted my money. So I cried during the counseling, and then as they took me back into the room and started the procedure, I was just laying there on the table, staring up at the ceiling, crying, and the nurse was standing beside me. She was trying to just kind of hold my hand and tell me it'd be okay and it'd be over soon and it'd be all right, because I was crying so bad. And I remember just looking over at her And about that time, she looked down at the doctor and she said, "Oh, look, twins." And then she looked over at me and she smiled at me like it was something that I should have been proud of. I remember seeing her in slow motion like it wasn't really happening, and I became hysterical. I began screaming, "Oh my God, no." And she started yelling at me and told me that I had to lay still, and the doctor, the abortionist, started screaming at me because at this time the procedure was taking place and the vacuum and tools were inside of me, and so she had to hold me down, and they even had to call someone else into the room to hold me down while the procedure finished, and they took the rest of my other baby out of me. I know only by the grace of God there was no physical complications from it. In the recovery area, the abortionist came in. Even after having 2 abortions prior, the doctor never comes in to talk to you, but he did come in to speak to me, and he apologized for the nurse's behavior and said that he would speak to her because, see, the nurses aren't supposed to tell the women about their children. And I remembered walking out of there that day like a zombie, wishing I was dead. And I had been off drugs for over a year, and I immediately went back. I had been a crack cocaine addict, and I started doing drugs, and I even then tried to commit suicide. I truly believe that God allowed me to hear about my twins that day because I was not supposed to, because it made me open my eyes to what abortion really was, and also what I had done even with my prior children. And I share this with people because I don't want other women to experience the pain that I have. And I want people to know that you can never understand truly, I think, unless you've really gone through it yourself. But it's not something that just happens and you go on with your life. You go on with your life, a very wounded individual, and it affects all the people around you. So that's why I won't be silent anymore, and I speak out so that other women won't make the same choice like I did.
Alan and Clayton, we just heard Rebecca's story. She's been a guest on our show before and shared that painful testimony. And every testimony that we hear hurts and it's painful, but hers always brings tears to my eyes because during her second abortion procedure, in the middle of her abortion, the nurse looked at her and said, "Look, oh look, twins." Mm-hmm. And the reality of what was going on was so devastating to her that she was hysterical. And they had to bring in people to hold her down on that table while the abortionist finished doing the procedure.
And you know, it is so, I mean, every abortion is so traumatic, but to have twins, I have a set of twins, twin girls, they're now 25. And it's just so difficult to comprehend. And I mean, they had to hold her down to finish the job, to get the rest of one of the babies out of her.
I'll tell you.
And
But she was not alone in crying, even in the recovery room. We've had so many women on this program who start crying. And I know Norma McCorvey, who was the Roe of Roe v. Wade and who's our client, worked in abortion clinics and saw women crying in the recovery rooms. And abortion is